for you. There we go. All right, today is Thursday, March 10th, and I'm really excited about this meeting to connect with you all, talking about the HyphaDAO, talking about joint seats, talking about FIO, and how we might possibly work together. Yeah, just tons of gratitude right now. Just super, super excited. I had a good call with Rieki, probably gave you up to date on like what we're talking about, the potential to work together. And actually, it's interesting. I want to just start with this. Maybe this would be a fun thing to start with. I was doing some meditations. I was thinking about this yesterday. This is a little weird, but I'm just going to throw it out there. I think you guys would appreciate it. So yeah, this is 2 days ago, actually. Okay. So yeah, it's a little weird, but because all matter is consciousness and conscious, the choices, consciousness is the ability to choose, of many aware beings impact the experience of lower aware beings. This has important implications regarding the tools we use throughout our day. Though the relatively unconscious tools have less of an influence over a higher conscious being than an equally conscious being, the repetition over extended periods of time do have a long-term impact. This is kind of the thing I was exploring. Like water carving a rock, like it's just that impact over and over again. You can cut through rock. The consciousness of the tool creator matters. The blockchains, DAO tools, and the like we choose to engage with and rely on as helpmates towards a new society embody and are impacted by those who brought them into existence and the awareness of the community which continues to feed them and give them life. We must choose wisely who we partner with and how we grow the community so that all aspects of spiral dynamics are accounted for and given a purpose and place. Whole lot of stuff there that I imagine you probably are tracking with.
Totally agree. I think we were talking about this recently with Rieki about, who we should talk to, because there's all these big, blockchains with huge amounts of purses and funds. But he said that, some of them are just not aligned with us. They might have billions of dollars, but they are not aligned with what we're trying to do. So it doesn't make sense to approach them. First of all, they probably won't invest in us anyway. But if they did, it would not go anywhere, basically. So that's also what I'm thinking.
Awesome. Well, it was definitely not my norm to start out a business meeting with all matter is an emergent property of consciousness. But I figured with the two people on this call, and this is one of the reasons I was very excited about this call. We are not one of those protocols with a gigantic treasury. As Rieki probably shared with you, we're very transparent. We do run as a DAC or decentralized autonomous consortia as much as possible, but really I love your DO idea of DHO. It really is human run of humans making decisions. We do have a treasury. I'm the managing director, so I'm kind of responsible for some of the stuff along with the steering committee and the board of directors to manage that treasury well for the community. And I've always been strongly inclined to think that the FIO protocol is really, really important because we're building all kinds of awesome DeFi and new forms of value storage and DAO tools and all these beautiful things, NFTs and everything. But if it's not easy to use, then nobody use it because it's just engineers building tools for other engineers. And then the flip side of that, or corollary to that, is we're a little too early as a project. Like, we're based on, from the viability standpoint, high activity of transfer of funds using cryptocurrency. That is not the market we're in today. Most people use this for speculation, meaning they put it on an exchange, they speculate it, or they put it in DeFi and they speculate, but they don't actually use it to transfer back and forth to purchase goods and services, things of that. It's, less than 4% of the world. According to the White House, we're about 14% of the US, I guess they said a couple of days ago, but still not a lot of people. And even those, not a lot of transfer activity, which is, so one of the things that I feel deeply responsible for is how do we ensure the treasury we have will keep us going for the next 3 to 5 years, because that's the timeline I look at for mass adoption, according to the law of diffusion of innovation of demand. You look at that, exponential curve that's been going on for 10 years. Cell phones, the internet, it all follows the same pattern. And we're about where we are today is about, last I saw is about a little bit towards the end of last year, looking at this data, it was like, we're about 7.5 years. The internet went from now to 1 billion users, and the curve is sharper with Bitcoin. So it'd be more like 3 to 5 years. So I want to make sure our treasury lasts that long, because if it does, the strategy of the tokenomics of FIO will work. So I want to preface all that to say, as an organization, we're at a place where we're like, whoa, we may need to cut back. We're maybe doing too many things. Maybe have too much money out there doing too many things. That said, what I'm really fascinated about, and it's the same idea I had, and Rieki mentioned it directly, was this idea for foundations with their native token. We do all our budgeting mostly in non-native tokens, like not FIO. We're looking at how much USDT and Bitcoin and things we have like that. But the idea of treasuries coming together and saying, hey, you have a native token, we have a native token, let's partnership together to do some type of token swap. And therefore our incentives are aligned, our communities are aligned, we start supporting each other, and there's, you know, potentially lock schedules. So, you know, one group's not just dumping on the other to hurt their community, and like all these different potentials come out of that. So I just want to preface this conversation with that to say, you know, we definitely aren't those big money bags people, even though we do have money. There's a responsibility to have it last a long time. That said, I also have some like actual technical questions. I was looking at the GitHub a little bit, and I want to dive through. I've got like a few different questions here that we could jump into. But before I do that, I want to pause and say, are there any other questions or any directions you'd like to take conversation based on that starting point?
I just want to say that we're quite aligned with the, we're all creating crypto for the rest of the world. Right now, it's only DeFi traders. It's a very tiny portion of the world, right? And DeFi traders won't grow that much. They're already there. There's not going to be a lot of growth with them. But the rest of the world, like Seeds is for everyone else, Hypha is for everyone else. So that's really a big difference from a lot of projects. They create stuff for the coolest, you know, DeFi stuff for all these DeFi traders because there's a lot of money. But we are creating crypto for everyone. So this is a whole different story. And that's where we are really aligned with FIO, because you guys are also doing that. You're trying to make it easy. Like if you ever onboarded into the Light wallet, we made it easy. It's easier than any other wallet.
I did. No, I love it. I did. I messed with the Light wallet and the Passport, and I would agree. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And I saw only half of your talk with Rieki. Unfortunately, I found it too late. I just watched it before. So the multi-sig stuff looks really impressive. So
yeah, I've got some funky stuff that I was tinkering with. So I've had this vision. So I was early with Bitcoin in like 2013, not as early as some, but still like in January. So like, you know, I got 2.5 Bitcoin for $50. You know, I was excited about that. And I feel like I'm early on the DAO DAC kind of, this is the tool for saving humanity kind of mindset. Like this is going to be how we do governance for nonprofits, organizations, governments, corporations, all the things. Yeah. And so I was working with the EOS DAC, which was one of the initial block producers that launched the EOS chain. And we really worked hard to build the DAC factory, and we did launch it, but it was always like problems. And also the community kind of fell apart for various tokenomics reasons and other reasons. And they went on, a lot of the core team went on to do Alien Worlds, and they've been phenomenally successful. And to their credit, as far as the DAC DAO mission, they are still exploring those modalities where each planet in Alien Worlds is a DAO, and they're building DAO tooling within there. So it's neat that they're still seeing the reason and importance for that and exploring it within a gaming environment that has a huge treasury now, which is cool. So anyway, I've been very passionate about this. I was looking at Telos. So initially when I came in with FIO protocol, I was like, oh, one of my jobs, because I'm the DAO guy, is to make sure FIO runs with these great DAO tools. We've since been using Atlassian. We've literally used Atlassian for everything. We use Jira, we use Confluence. We've got full comment tracking and everything. Unless Atlassian someday becomes an untrustworthy company, we've got full, you know, tracking so the community can see every single thing that happens, all the worker proposals, everything's there transparently. You know, accounts are free because we're a nonprofit, so we can, you know, scale without a concern. So that's been helpful. But I still have this desire to be like, I want to really put the token holders in control at some level. And really be more of a DAO. And so I looked at Telos Decide, and that was kind of my next, you know, potential to go that direction. And then the timing was beautiful connecting with Rieki, and he showed me the latest video he put out, which is phenomenal. I've been sharing it with people. I'm going to do an article on it. Like that video is amazing. Oh. It's such a good video. I'm like, oh, so Rieki, I hope you can hear me, but kudos to you, my friend. This really great job on that. And so, so now I'm really kind of interested in saying, okay, and then as part of that process, as part of that desire to make all, you know, DAO all the things and DAC all the things, I actually had an idea of like, what about FIO as a fundamental for a DAO? Meaning a DAO, a group of people with a shared goal. They need a group identifier, and then you need members that are, you know, identified. And I started thinking about how do we simplify this whole concept instead of like custodians and all these other DAO terms we use. We could just say a group with members and admins. And the only technical term you have to learn is a multi-sig, basically. You say, hey, there's multi-sig functionality. So I kind of built a prototype, but I've been pushing within our community saying, hey, we could do this on FIO really well, because the FIO domain becomes your group identifier and your FIO crypto handle becomes your kind of member identifier. And then you can, work with other tokens and other chains and other things because of the way the FIO crypto handle maps to different public addresses. So when I saw the video that Rieki did, I started thinking, wow, that idea might be able to be rebirthed, and the FIO chain itself potentially might be able to support that vision I had, where we're not just saying, oh, we need tools for, the actual community treasure for FIO protocol, but we now become a platform using what you guys have built integrated with FIO to become the one-stop shop for DAOs. Because today I can't point people to, other than HyphaDAO, I haven't been able to be like, go here and make a DAO, and your onboarding experience is going to be awesome for your users. And then I have to get confused by MetaMask and whatever, or Anchor Wallet or whatever it might be. So that's kind of my excitement for this. And then, again, I do have some detailed questions we could jump into, but let me pause again for any reflections on that.
Yeah, so I want to understand more of what you want to do. So you want to just take Hypha and put it on the FIO chain, basically, and say, okay, here's our DAO.
Well, these are a couple
somehow integrated with the identifiers as well, right?
These are the things that I want to explore together on the call, because that is definitely, I think, one direction. I think that's kind of what Rieki and I were playing around with, saying, okay, we're a Neos IO chain. We are heavily modified, 2 years plus of modifications. So there's certain things like the max fee parameter. Every call on the FIO chain has a fee, but those fees can be paid by what we call bundled transactions. I mean, if you have a crypto handle, you already have 100 bundled transactions. So you've essentially prepaid for your interactions with the blockchain, because nothing on blockchain can be free. Otherwise, it's now a service attack, and they're going to, fill up your block log, and you're going to have problems. So we also have, as part of the FIO mainnet launch, the treasury there of a large percentage of tokens. I think it's 12.5%. It might be a little bit less than that now. Locked and designated. So there's 125 million tokens locked and designated for crypto handle giveaways. So you can still have that great experience where you didn't have to actually pay to join a community. You got your crypto handle for free. And we also recently just deployed a fix or not fix, but an upgrade where those are not annually renewed anymore. Once you get it for life. But if you use up all your bundles, you pay another $2 and you get another 100 bundles, so it's relatively cheap, and it's all the block producers are supplying to the chain a US dollar value of FIO and all the ratios for all the fees. So it'll always be $2. That's the current kind of recommended price they go with, no matter what the FIO token fluctuates to. So it's not one of the situations where Ethereum paying gas fees was no big deal when Ethereum was 50 cents, but now Ethereum's $2,500 and people are like, oh, frick, that's $80 to do a USDT transfer. I've personally paid over $9,000 paying our team on FIO protocol, just in Ethereum gas fees. I haven't checked. It's probably closer to 10,000 now. It's absolutely insane. Literally, because I pay 40, 50, 60, 70, $80 sometimes. Now it's $10. I'm like, woo, it's cheap, but it's still $10 freaking to send USDT, right? And this is a big problem. So, and that's another thing we could tackle separately. But
actually, just to plug in right there, and Luke, fully aligned with everything you're saying. Did you check out the part where we've created and minted our own dollar stablecoin, and then we do redemptions in bulk?
I have not looked at that yet, but that's very exciting. One of the
Bitcoin and Ethereum assets as well, but we just bulk it up and do it in claims. So
so currently we moved it so everything is paid out in EOS because there's no transaction fees. So we take our ETH treasury, we buy EOS, and we pay everyone in EOS in a few multi-sig transactions. That's it.
I love that. Do you pay? So here, a couple of the challenges, and let's just little side tangent, because I think it's actually helpful. The reason I'm still paying all those fees is that I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for our community. And that means vendors and other people that aren't as tight knit with our community. And they're just whatever, I want USDT, right? Is that if I go with any other stablecoin today, there isn't, and I don't really want to use Tron. Sorry, Justin Sun, but what you did with the Steam community, I'm still a little upset about. I don't want to use USDT on Tron. So I need a stable coin that that the person who receives it can immediately and easily in a US jurisdiction convert to US dollars. And so that means USDT, USDC, when you look at Coinbase, Gemini, Kraken, the major exchanges, they currently don't support like layer 2 stablecoins and other solutions. I've heard that USDT on Solana is available on FTX, which you can get with the US account, but I haven't explored that as much. And that would be a big shift for us to move to a Solana-based token. But either way, it's a huge problem. I'm really excited to hear you guys have solved that. And the main thing would be if I could transfer to a stable, pay in stablecoin and have a process where they can immediately go to, for example, EOS. Every exchange has EOS. Now they could convert right then and there to US dollars, and they won't have a whole lot of fluctuation as long as they're converting from stable to EOS and then selling, and then selling EOS for USD. That could work. I mean, it's 2 transactions they have to do, so they're going to lose some fees in the transactions, but that could work.
We haven't solved it, and we had huge problems with EOS fluctuating like crazy. So we'd pay out, and people would get way less. Yep. If they get more, they don't complain, but if they get less, they complain. Obviously, I would too.
And that's what we generally do is we pay almost everybody in USDT and FIO, and generally it's a combo. Like some people get paid all in USDT, some people all in FIO, and some people get a mixture of both. And the idea that we say is, look, if your intention is just to dump the token, just go with USDT. Like if your intention is to save the token, then ask for FIO, that kind of thing. And I love the voice token idea that you guys have. It's so interesting. I was going to ask, are those non-transferable? Because it wasn't clear in the video. They are non-transferable. Okay, they're connected to an account. That's what I thought. All right, that is really exciting. The idea that you can not have a plutocracy in your governance and really have it based on meritocracy, saying, hey, the community acknowledges you've done a lot as a human being, a conscious, member of the DO. As you say, DO, DHO, is that right?
Yeah, DO.
I love the DO idea. Okay, so let me go ahead and dive into a couple of my questions here, and this is awesome. I'm really encouraged to talk to you guys. First question is, what version of CDT / the EOS.io code base have you guys built on? Because I noticed like the trace function and things like that. One of the concerns is that FIO is pretty far behind the latest EOS.io. So do you guys know what version you're on for those two?
We're probably on the version from about 1 or 2 years ago.
That might be a good thing because we're pretty far back as well. But do you happen to know specifically which version of the CDT and which version of the EOS.io? And if not, that's fine. You could get back to me on it later. But I need the version of CDT and the version of, because it'll directly impact whether we can implement today or whether we have to wait for a very long project that we're currently working on, which is upgrading all the FIO code to the latest EOS.io build.
Okay. I don't know if Node.io gives me that information. I can check.
Yeah, it's a little bit funky. I'm going to go ahead and just put this in the chat here, and then you guys can get back to me on that. That'd be totally fine.
Okay.
And then
I'll get back to you. I mean, I have it installed in the system. I just don't know how to issue a command.
Yeah, no worries. So the next one would be kind of along those lines, and this is going to impact the other questions we have later. How difficult do we think it would be to include FIO-specific functionality and port this to FIO, meaning run the entire ecosystem you guys have built native on the FIO chain? I mentioned the max fee parameter as an example. This would mean like every call would have to have this new parameter for one. And then, there'd be obviously a lot of work. You'd have to do a whole lot of testing. You'd have to be able to, all of the actions on the FIO chain have to be whitelisted. So it's like only certain actions are allowed on our chain. So, and every single thing on our chain is a system contract, meaning you'd have to go through the entire process with the entire block producer team to basically set up a DevNet, get it running and test it on a DevNet. When it's fully solid and you've got a whole test framework and harness and everything, and you're confident it works, then you submit it to be on the test net. The block producers run it through a series of tests on the test net, and then it goes from there to mainnet. So it would be a very large project that would definitely need a lot of project management. It would need release management. It would need QA. It would obviously need development. It'd be a big project that our current team doesn't have the staff capacity to pull off. So that would be the other part. I think when I was talking to Rieki about this, it was like, well, you guys seem to have funds. We seem to have developers willing to work. Maybe there's a good, work there. And maybe the key is going to be obviously for this to work. And this is why I like the idea that Rieki framed this as more of a partnership. For this to work, it would have to be something where, well, I say have to, but my vision for it would be right now that you guys would like own it as your own. Meaning we wouldn't have to come in and spend all this time and energy going, did you think of this? Did you think of that? Did you get this feature right? Does this actually work or is it broken? It would have to be something where you're like, this was ours on FIO. Would we own it in a way that like we wouldn't call it done unless it's done, and we're happy to release it to the community. And generally when you work with like vendors, you never get that type of relationship, right? It's always like, hey, pay us. Yeah, we kind of did it. And then you have to spend all this time like doing QA, doing quality assurance, and like user acceptance testing and all that kind of stuff. And the idea of it is that, and then, you know, all that takes time. Now, that doesn't mean our devs and community won't be available for questions, obviously. But ideally, it would be like you go to the block producers first, and they could help as much as possible so that the FIO core team could continue delivering on the stuff that we've already committed to on our roadmap. That's just one idea. So yeah, thinking through how difficult do we think that would be? Is that even an option? And then obviously, you know, that filters into kind of the costs of something like that. And then I have some other questions related to potentially going a different direction and using things already on Telos. So let's explore that first. What are your initial thoughts on the amount of effort to actually pull that off?
So I'm a little bit unclear how the fee thing would work, because currently, yeah, we don't have fees, but who would pay the fees?
Yeah, so let me unpack that. The way FIO chain works today, and again, if we were to port this all over to FIO, so the way FIO chain works today, there are fees that, like when you transfer a token, it's about 9-10 cents in FIO tokens to fee when you transfer the FIO token. When you create a new FIO crypto handle, it's about $2 in fees. And that would be a Luke at Stokes. That also creates an account on chain. So when you transfer tokens, create an account on chain, register a domain on chain. Those are like $40 a year if you want your own custom domain. And that is renewed every year, you have to pay. And these are all, again, fees in native FIO tokens. And then you have adding new bundle transactions, obviously, is another $2 fee. And also, like if you're going to send locked tokens, that's another fee. And so there's a whole fee schedule. But the idea being that for the people that were joining a DAO, if we, and I assume you guys have some type of Sybil attack resistance in your current wallets, because I just, you know, I got $5 in seed tokens or whatever it said it was, and I just created an account and it didn't, you know, prevent me from doing that. I've seen a lot of projects, especially in the EOS-IO space, that have tried to like, yeah, you can just sign up for free, and they just got destroyed because people would just farm it for accounts. So assuming you have some type of Sybil attack resistance in there, the foundation has millions and millions of tokens set aside for giveaways, meaning the fees for creating a crypto handle would be covered by the foundation. Included in that would be 100 bundle transactions, meaning voting or whatever fee structure we put in there. Part of the code would be, yeah, you can give it a fee, or based on how much space, bandwidth, CPU, all that we think this transaction is going to take for the block producers, we could say it's going to use one or more, even a multiple of bundled transactions. So for example, a FIO request is pretty intense. It takes 2 bundled transactions in order to process that. So the idea would be, it's still free for the user. They got a free crypto handle. They have 100 bundled transactions. They don't have to pay anything. And now they can interact with the chain. But the idea being, if they interact with the chain a lot, then they're going to need FIO tokens eventually to buy more bundled transactions. Now, the beautiful thing about the FIO chain is anyone can pay for fees on anyone else's behalf, meaning as an organization, FIO or you or anyone else can say, hey, we're monitoring all these accounts. We know this is real, and we're going to just throw in some FIO tokens, and we're going to actually buy more bundled transactions for that account, just so they can keep going and they never have to touch the FIO token or know anything about it. That's a model we have.
Oh, that's really good. So that means, because that's what I would want for a DAO. A DAO would pay fees, but it would pay the fees for its users. So we don't have a situation where the users want to vote and it doesn't work, and they're like, oh, no, I have
absolutely.
To,
And that's exactly how we've structured it, in that it's one of the great features of FIO, in that anyone can register an address for someone else, register a domain for someone else, buy a bundled transaction for someone else. It's all done that way. Yep.
Okay, so I think we are running on 1.7. It's probably compatible with 1.6 as well. I just checked that.
Cool.
I don't think we did anything, special from the time we started our contracts until now. So,
now, when did you start your contracts? Do you know what year about that was? Roughly?
Yeah, end of 2019.
End of 2019. Okay, so we might actually be good, because we launched our chain around we were working.
Probably 1.6 compatible, I would think. I don't think we used any of the new functionalities. In the beginning, they weren't that useful, and now we don't notice them. So talking about how to port, the difficulty or the estimated effort for porting our contracts. There's two parts. The contracts, I think, are pretty simple because there's not much to them. The architecture is very elegant. We store basically documents and a document graph on the Telos chain. So we use the tables to store this document graph, and just for a little bit for some other things, but not too much. So we don't have that many tables. And it gets pretty big with the data because currently all the data is on chain. But we're thinking of eventually outsourcing the data to IPFS and only working with hashes on chain so that we have IPFS hashes connected to each other.
Real quick with that, can you give me an estimate of size? When you say a lot, are we talking gigs and gigs and gigs, terabytes? What are we talking?
I think we have 100 megabytes now for the HyphaDAO on DAO.hypha. If you look up DAO.hypha, the contract, it's pretty big. It's one of the bigger ones on the Telos chain, probably the biggest one actually.
So 100 megabytes it includes the documents that have been stored on there.
Yeah, that includes all the documents, but it's showed only one DAO.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. No, I mean, so this is interesting because, and I know this is like from one framing viewpoint, this is greedy, evil capitalism, but from another frame point, this is how we do sustainability and survive as an organization, is we're also exploring, what are different ways that we can have more fees collected on chain. And obviously the block producers want more fees as well. So the idea being, if we did port it over, then it would be just a fee-based thing where it's like, okay, it just costs more bundle transactions and or more FIO tokens to store these documents. And it would be, I think we do have one action on chain. I think it's the multi-sig one, but there's one that can be based on, I think it can be based on size, meaning the size of what you're about to do, you can have a multiple of that. So it could be more of a fee that expands and contracts based on how many resources you're actually using on chain. So that could be cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's how the normal EOSIO works, right? With RAM fees and
yeah, and we've totally gutted all of that. So it's basically, we do all that behind the scenes, completely transparent. So the user never has to worry about CPU bandwidth or RAM, but we've kind of reintroduced it in a way that just has this one catch-all for everything that usually is transparent. You don't even think about, but occasionally with these more advanced things, it would be a fluctuating fee that the client, so I should also say there's an endpoint that the client will call and say, hey, what's the fee gonna be? And the endpoint says, here's the max fee for the thing you're about to call for the size you're about to do. And then, so there's no surprise to the user. They get to see it up front before they agree to it and everything.
Okay, so I think the contracts are pretty simple, but then there's also the document graph, which is our intermediary layer between the blockchain and the Web3 user interface. So we use GraphQL to query our data, and this entire document graph is just in a flat table on chain, but it gets processed into like a GraphQL database using, I think it's called eGraph.
And just real quick, I'm really glad you brought that up. That's one of the challenges I remember we faced with EOS DAC, and that we had like 3 processors that all became single points of failure where, these are the services that are running all the time. One was scraping the data off the chain from the block log, reparsing it, throwing it back in MongoDB. Then there was a process that went through and took that raw data, reparsed it again to normalize it in tables, throw that back into MongoDB. And then there was a third API that was querying that data to make it available to the web interface. And so like you're smiling because you're fully familiar with all this drama in the Web3 space.
Well, that sounds much worse than our system.
Oh, it was, shout out and love to Michael Yates. Seriously, love to Michael Yates, but it was an architectural design that I kept just thinking was not a good approach. And it's funny because one of the team members actually ended up forking out and doing his own DAO solutions with I'm forgetting what it's called, but it's actually an interesting platform. He did everything all native. So it was literally just get table rows to get everything. And it was kind of an interesting, different approach.
Yeah, I mean, the reason we didn't do that is because
Daclify, that's what it was. Sorry, I just want to give a shout out to Daclify. Daclify. Let me actually pull it up and see if it's still running. Have you guys seen that one?
Nope.
Oh yeah. Daclify.com. let me see if I hope it's still up. It was actually a really cool project that, yeah, there you go. EOSIO group accounts. You guys might want to be interested in checking that out. Might find some interesting ideas.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So there's a dgraph layer, but that should actually be the exact same for you guys as it is for us. So that has no differences, right? Just because it's on FIO chain, it doesn't really make a difference for that. It's just querying. It's just getting the data from something called Firehose. And, you know, yeah, it's a single point of failure, but you could set it up on multiple computers and then it wouldn't be a single point of failure. It's just a cache layer basically for the chain.
Yeah.
It's not doing anything beyond just, you know, recreating the document.
It's kind of like a full node that, you know, full history node or API query node that the block producers often run. And so one of the things I've been thinking about with these type of things is exploring whether or not we would want to say, hey, block producers, part of your role would be maybe to run one of these just so there's redundancy, and then set up a proxy that could just cycle through them or something. So, all right, cool. Absolutely. So that answers that. Anything further on that?
I think not. I think I'm a little bit, still kind of unclear on how the fees would work when we, I mean, yeah, when, I don't know how they're charged or how that works. Do they automatically get deducted from accounts or? Yeah,
every single interaction automatically, like when you interact with the chain, you're going to either be pulling from bundled transactions or you're going to be, you know, having to supply FIO, you know, a FIO from your account to pay for it. Now, the other thing would be in your user interface, you could have a button that says, hey, you know, I want to do this. And therefore the interface itself is paying for you to get that done. But that's why I go back to the idea of, you know, strong Sybil attack resistance. And with the bundled transaction concept, that could not be a problem, meaning you could just be proactively loading up accounts with bundled transactions. And as they use that account more, you could say, oh, they're about to run out. And you could have scripts that are monitoring those accounts and automatically giving them more bundles. So users just doing stuff on chain, voting and whatever, and not even worried about it. I think that would be the ideal way to do it, so that the organization has like a bucket of tokens that are set aside for that purpose, you know, and then they'd be making sure. And at the same time, it's kind of an abuse deterrent too. If somebody's like not a good actor and the community is like, look, we're not going to pay for their fees anymore. You know, there are other things that you can think through to be like, yeah, you got certain people that don't get paid for by the foundation.
Yeah, I mean, so in Seeds, we prevent Sybil attacks with the web of trust. So you have to be invited by someone else.
Gotcha.
They stake 5 seeds for you. And we figured these seeds make up for the RAM cost that we pay for your account. So it's you know, you're going to lose money if you create lots of accounts with this.
Nice. I love that. So it's a staked based web of trust.
You have to stake 5 seeds for each account. And you can't unstake them. So they're actually locked. They get locked up.
Cool.
So how did that translate to FIO? I'm not sure, but how you would get, I mean, how DAOs would secure themselves would be, you know, by having enrollers
we actually have a locking functionality built into the core of FIO. It's like a core fundamental. We have some improvements we're making to it, but you could do a similar thing where you could just say, create an account and lock, you know, X number of FIO for 100 years or something like that. So you could do a similar thing with the native FIO.
So you have so I just thought about a new idea actually. Do you have the same permission system as ESIO?
We do, but it's been modified. And so we actually have a whole, and it's a bummer because just Monday, I think it was, we had like 5 hours of meetings and we were going through trying to prioritize. We have like 40 to 50 to 60 different things that we're all doing right now. And it's just too much. So we have to like really prioritize. And one of the projects we have, I think you can go to, let me drop a link in here. This is our process for making changes to the core protocol and including what we're talking about here, it would have to go through the same process. This is our FIPS, FIO improvement proposal process. So if you look through the README here, you can see a bunch of the FIPS, and the ones at the very bottom support alternate FIO public key for encryption, new funds request, account register FIO address of private domains, token locking. There's a bunch of key-based, permissions-based FIPS. I think it's like FIP 36 through 40, I believe. Those FIPS have not been approved yet. Or actually, no, they are accepted, but they're not being built right now that I know of. And so we'd have to be careful and think that through, because here's another thing that you should understand about the FIO protocol. It acts like a UTXO chain, meaning I can just send, like you can just send Bitcoin to a brand new Bitcoin public key that you just generated. I can send FIO tokens to a brand new FIO public key, and it automatically generates the on-chain account using a hash of the key. So there's a one-to-one mapping between your public key and your account, and you don't want to break that. you can still add additional permissions as far as other accounts, but currently you can only have one public key per permission. So there are some limitations to how we've built our permission system, but you can still do account-based multi-sig. You can still do a lot of cool stuff. I don't think we're supporting the time, the delay time-based permission, that's gone. And we're not supporting currently the ability to have multiple public key permissions. You can still do custom permissions though. So if you want to do a custom permission, you can do that as well.
Do you have delayed transactions?
We don't have the delayed transactions now. The whole deferred transactions we kind of got rid of. It was on its way out anyway, as far as EOS IO.
It's working. We're kind of relying on it for everything because it's very, very useful.
Yeah, EOS DAC was in the same boat, and it actually caused a lot of problems where you had certain situations where things just wouldn't work because they would fail silently. And then people were like, why didn't that work? And we're like, we have to dig through the logs, like, oh, the deferred transaction failed. And there's actually a project, I think, that was basically converting EOS stuff into like a cron job. There's like a cron EOS, I think it's called. So there's actually a project for doing cron jobs for EOS essentially because of that issue, because the deferred transactions were so unreliable. But yeah, so that's a good point. That's an example. If you've got, and I know EOS DAC had similar things. If you've got things that rely on,
I think not too much in Hypha. In Seeds, there's a lot. It really relies on it. But we also prepared for not having them. So there's we actually built a scheduler. It's really simple. As long as somebody pokes the scheduler, it will just run all these actions. You don't actually need deferred transactions in that case. So our scheduler just whenever it gets tapped, it runs everything it's supposed to run on a cyclical basis. And it checks the timestamps and it's like, oh, I need to run this again. So it does that.
The way we solve that in our ecosystem is we actually have endpoints that are free to call, and we encourage the block producers to set up cron jobs to call them. And they basically just have a workload. So you just keep hitting the endpoint until the workload is done. The problem we ran into with doing an on-chain scheduler was that as the workload grows, if you can't get it done in 500 milliseconds, it'll fail. And then it just continues to fail because there's just too much work to get done. So we ran into this problem and realized like, you need to just have endpoints that will just keep working while there's work to be done. You can't, because we used to do on block stuff. We explored all these different approaches and realized like the only way to do any of this type of stuff, clean up stuff, things like that on chain, it all has to be done with endpoints.
Our solution is to run only like 200 actions at a time. So everything that is more than 200 things. Gets just broken up. It's like in ancient computer systems, And you just have to hope that those things are not big enough that any one of them would fail. Because if any one of them fails, it'll just keep trying and just keep failing. Where we found that like because of that reason, you kind of want a human involved a little bit to say, okay, hey, I noticed my thing failed. Why did it fail? And I can just like manually do something about it. But yeah, no, that I would love to look into that too, because if that's a better approach, we might be able to adjust even what we're doing. So, all right, cool. So we've got some deferred transaction stuff we want to look into. And you guys have a schedule, which is really cool. So deferred transactions are mostly just for automated things. Like for example, let's say my proposal got approved and I want to automatically activate it. I don't want users to have to go in there and click activate. So things like that. Not too much though, a little bit.
Cool.
For a lot of stuff, we still have to push buttons.
Let's pause just for a second, just for the recording's sake, and anyone else who looks at this. What is and I think I know, but go ahead and clarify. What's the difference between Seeds and Hypha? If I understand right, HyphaDAO is kind of the framework that you built so that you could build seeds, but they are kind of separate. Is that right?
Yeah, completely. HyphaDAO is the way that we organize ourselves. Hypha, the organization, organizes itself with the DAO. So everything that we do is on chain. Our treasure is on chain. On-chain payroll, on-chain automated payouts, on-chain, proposal system, all this kind of stuff. And HyphaDAO is currently in the process of releasing our software so that everybody can use it, so that other people can also create their own DAOs. So we're switching to a multi-DAO approach, meaning that we can sign up 10,000 DAOs, 100,000 DAOs, and they can organize themselves separate from Hypha, but also actually collaborate with Hypha or with each other. So it's like a whole ecosystem of DAOs that can be created with HyphaDAO. And Seeds is a product that HyphaDAO created and a movement. Rieki is going to kill me if I say it's a product. It's a conscious currency, and we're in the process of redesigning it. We had about, in the beginning, Hypha was just creating seeds, but from the beginning, all the seeds belong to the seeds commons, basically to what became the seeds commons. So all the seeds belong to the community, and then the community decided to give Hypha some seeds by vote to develop the software to create seeds. So we did that in the beginning, and then eventually we were voted down, and Seeds had to restructure itself. So it took the last 6 months to restructure itself, and now it has like a Seeds Commons, which is like a combination of DAOs that all work together. HyphaDAO is in the Seeds Commons, but it's not the only player now. There's others, which is great. And the whole thing is like way more decentralized than it was before, but it's also created big delays. So Seeds is very
I love
cool.
that. I'm so glad you added that to it, because like one of the things that I get excited about with DAX and DAOs is that like I look at them as tools for human consciousness evolution because they provide signal and not noise. Like so much of our governance solutions right now are based on threats of violence and these, measurements of value that are completely broken, such as fiat currency. And so there's no signal when you're trying to analyze, was this the decision that these humans made, and did they benefit or get harmed by that decision? And so I love the idea that these will fail, and that's the point. So you can actually look at it and say, why did it fail? Like in the case of EOS DAC, I would say it failed for a number of reasons, one of which is don't airdrop your token, your governance token, to a whole bunch of people that don't care about your project at all. And so they ended up taking over the DAO, and in a similar way, they didn't pay anybody for like a year. And so everyone's like, well, screw this, I'm going somewhere else, right? And that's one of the big reasons why the project failed, is just on pause. I should say it's on pause right now. It still has a treasury. The irony of it still has money. It's just nobody it cares enough to be participating. But the yes, no, I really love that idea. I think that makes a lot of sense. And thinking through, like, I mean, just the examples of where the core team that is doing it gets voted out because everyone's like, why are we spending all this money? And then it's like, yeah, guess what? Nothing happens after that. And everyone's like, wait, how come nothing's happening? 6 months later, they're like, do we still care about that?
Well, we also, we initiated a decentralization of the whole rule system. And that also created a great delay because it turned out the rule system is very complex and people want to do it, but they realize, oh shit, it's like really complicated.
It's a lot of work. Yeah. This suspiciously looks like work. I love it, especially when you get the like, not a knock on the conscious community, which I absolutely love, but there is kind of this like, hey man, peace and love, and it's all good. Let's just meditate and consciousness and like I like full disclosure, I'm moving that direction from a very like, building businesses and entrepreneur and everything. I'm definitely like pulling back on my, stated economic responsibilities from a capitalistic perspective, because I'm like, I want to explore this a little bit. I've always kind of been like, oh, you crazy hippies, what are you doing over there? And now I'm kind of like, hey, the great unbounded oneness, the abiding non-duality, maybe there's something here I should learn about. And so I'm on this wonderful journey, but it is funny. It's kind of this stereotype of like, yeah, but who does the work, right? And the tragedy of the commons.
I know.
Who's gonna do it, right?
It's fun to to have lots of meetings and keep talking about it, but nobody's doing anything and everyone is just talking and it's great, but
I always call it hands on keyboards. I'm like, who's gonna put hands on keyboards on this? Like, who's actually gonna put hands on keyboards, write code, and deploy it? Like, seriously, come on. Yeah. All right. So I think we've got a rough outline. I don't think we've talked so much about like the actual cost, like how many devs, how many man hours, like, and I don't even know if we can even begin to have that conversation before doing a deeper dive, but maybe if we can get a ballpark range so that I can bring this conversation to the steering committee and say, hey guys, here's kind of where we're at. And as we talk about that, I want to keep in mind the potential for, this token swap idea, meaning, we basically buy a bunch of seeds essentially as a community, and you're buying a bunch of FIO in a way that, and then potentially, there could be some USDT and some other coins as well. But again, I want to be very careful about how we manage the treasury in that regard.
Yeah, actually, we're going to have the Hypha token sale up and running this week. So in the next few days. And it's going to be the Hypha token, not Seeds. Seeds is in the process of reorganizing, and it's going to be very beautiful. We have an amazing,
And to be clear, the Hypha token is separate from your voice governance token. Is that right? Your non-transferable token? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
what would be the economic reason for the HyphaDAO token? And that would be helpful as we start thinking about the financial implications of this.
The HyphaDAO token is a utility token that we're also going to use, similar to FIO, to charge for usage of our tools. So I'm not
like you have to stake them, right? Is that how it works? You have to stake a number of Hypha in order to use the tools, kind of a deal.
Yeah, you can. Some things you can stake them for, and other things you have to burn them, which is you just buy some stuff with the HyphaDAO token. There's a rough outline of this, but I think we'll have way more ideas on this. And the way I think about it is that if you're on board an organization, it's probably reasonable to expect every member of that organization to pay a few dollars a month for the service of using the DAO.
Yeah.
So if you're on board 1 million people, that's like $5 million a month, for example. And somehow the HyphaDAO tokenomics will facilitate that. Like you stake some, you use some for, I don't know what, like more RAM or can't think of the things right now that we were going to charge for. We're going to have some premium services that, they're not unlocked in the base version, sort of like most, Web2 businesses operate. There's a free package, but then you want something cool. Like, for example, maybe you want a multi-chain treasury. That would be an extra that you have to either stake more or burn tokens to use or things like that. Or, we could actually, integrating the FIO protocol would be pretty interesting as well. I think it's a really good fit.
Yeah, I was thinking about, as I actually it's on my phone. Let me pull up when I was watching the video, I took some notes on my phone related to Hypha. Here we go, Hypha notes. Oh yeah, when they claim pay, that little button, it would be super cool to have it generate a FIO request. So it could be a FIO request for USDT on Ethereum, or you just click a button and it, boom, FIO request is generated by the server, sent out, to the user. Now it's right there, and they, so yeah, I think that would be cool.
Yeah,
all the other addresses obviously can be handled with the FIO crypto handle.
Like currently, the way we pay people, they have to enter their, their Ethereum address or their EOS address. And for the EOS address, the memo in case it's an exchange. So it's a huge pain in the ass.
Yep.
And it's very poorly managed right now from our side because we don't do any checking.
This is something that we do. I would say this is something we do well with FIO. I pay the team every month, and throughout the month, there's different proposals that come through, almost exclusively using FIO requests. And unless a vendor's like, no, I really don't want to get a FIO because I don't want to, mess with that. Almost exclusively. So they send us a FIO request, and in that FIO request, they put the memo WP dash. They actually tell me the worker proposal number. I go to Jira, look up that worker proposal number. I have all the proof of deliverables. I have all the information about why they feel they should get paid, and that's transparent to the whole community. And it's a super simple, like boom, boom, boom. And if there's a management structure, so in certain cases, there's certain managers that have to approve certain business development proposals for what they accomplished that month, or deliverables, they link out all the deliverables. And so then they just leave a comment and say approved. And I go through and I just swipe my thumb and pay it with a FIO request. So it's super nice. And that comes through nicely in that I'm validating the human readable address every time. So they can swap it out to other addresses or whatever. Maybe now they want to deposit to an exchange or whatever, but it's, easy to know what the human is correct.
It would be very useful for us too, for sure. The way Hypha operates, we have proposals and they just get paid out in HUSD, which is Hypha USD equivalent. And then later on, you can say, I want to redeem my HUSD for actual cash. And then you get your EOS or your ETH or whatever.
Okay, so you guys are basically, so you're running a bridge of sorts to do that? How does that happen?
It's just an IOU that we keep internally on chain.
Okay.
We're not really publishing this as a stablecoin or anything. It's just backed by the Hypha treasury. And, we know we have enough in the treasury to pay those out.
Do people game it? Do people game it where they're like, I'm going to cash out my stable coin when EOS is pumping or whatever, or when EOS tanks or whatever?
No, nobody games it. People just complain when EOS drops in the meantime, which, it
is what it is. All right, cool. So I think we've got now. Do you have like a team of people that might be interested in managing and doing this project? Like, is that even an option to consider, or would it take a lot of our team's involvement to pull this off? Obviously we're going to help with documentation and support and everything else.
We always have the same problem, really. We want to do a lot of stuff, and we actually have a lot of developers, but there needs to be always somebody who knows, who has a top level overview and who manages it and is behind it. So we always have the same problem with, the shortage of these kind of people. So if we have a partnership, we can prioritize it. And then, yeah, we'll find someone to do it. I mean, it's probably going to be me.
I mean, we've
Mac.
got a really great product guy in Pavo. Pavo's amazing. We've got a great VP of engineering with Eric. He's fantastic. They're overworked. They're swamped. They're already doing too much basically. So it's a matter of refining what they're involved in. So part of what I was thinking about this particular project, I mentioned we had like 5 hours of meetings on Monday, didn't get cut off on the chopping block. It was kept as like, yeah, this is something we just have to do. And part of that is the idea that eventually, and I'll use as an example, Shapeshift. We're very friendly with Shapeshift. You know, Eric Voorhees was on the board of DAPX, which is the company that did the first version of the FIO protocol. Actually had a great call with them this week. And like learning about how Shapeshift has become a DAO has just been phenomenal. We've had calls with their team. We've learned, how that's all gone for them. And it's been great. So it's the idea that the future for FIO is probably not continuing to grow as a centralized organization, as we are kind of somewhat operating right now, where you just have managers and more people, but instead being more decentralized. But you're exactly right. You need what I like how Shapeshift calls it. They have work streams. So you need like a development work stream, and you have someone who manages that work stream, and a work stream becomes like a budgeted group of funds, and they have to reapply for that work stream, has to reapply for the funds. And then they basically run a small little company with that work stream, paying whoever they want to pay, however they want to pay them, with their own internal budgeting processes. So it's so they have that model going along with the bounty model, where it's like, hey, I did this, it's done, I'd like to get paid. Yeah, easy to verify you did it, it's done, you get paid. So there's the work stream model and the bounty model. I think those are really interesting. So cool. I think this is probably one of the first conversations leading into that. So maybe what we can do, I can send you more documentation, developer docs, like specifics on how FIO functions, stuff on the fees that we talked about. Just continue answering any questions. We can have follow-up calls, which I really think we should do. And so let's try to like maybe land the plane as far as a technical specification document of like, this is what the project actually involves. Here's how many full-time engineers, here's how many, quality QA guys, release management team members, the whole deal, project management, product management, the whole deal. And then what we do then, kind of the way we phase this out is that would then be submitted as a worker proposal to the FIO DAO, basically. And we would have to break it out into milestones, say, hey, here's what it's going to cost. And then there'd be a lot of FIPs, right? We would have to actually either one FIP for the whole thing, or we need a bunch of FIPs. And we'd have to get community feedback on those FIPs to be like, is this something we want to do? Are we okay with modifying the FIO protocol to do this? Because the feedback we're getting from a lot of people is you're doing too much already. People get confused with NFT signatures and FIO requests and FIO send and like all these things. Like, why don't you just focus on FIO send and just do FIO send, So there would be some pushback, but at the same time, I feel like this is the inevitable path forward. And that's why we didn't cut the project. We really have to become more of a DAO, on-chain DAO with DAO tools, so that it's, I would eventually love to not even be a Cayman nonprofit, eventually have no legal jurisdiction in that way, just like Shapeshift is done. I mean, they have no organization at all. It's completely a DAO, which I think is beautiful. So let's continue that process. And again, I know you've got a lot of other stuff going on. I got a lot of other stuff going on, but I think it might be worth just, some money or something, maybe $500 or $1,000 or something, just say, hey, look, this has to get done. I mean, I would consider paying it out of my own pocket, right? Just to incentivize us to make this happen. Like, this has to happen, right? Just to explore this potential. And then going a completely different direction, I want to explore this also. And this might even be a way to get to where we want to go more immediately. And this is the idea that we just run everything on Telos for FIO for now. So that would mean we implement FIO requests into your system. We have a FIO branded Seeds wallet or Seeds passport, essentially, that's more FIO. So now we have a FIO DAO tool, and the HyphaDAO, the whole ecosystem as it exists today on Telos, becomes the tool that we essentially tell everybody in the FIO world to come interact with. Now, again, this is just a rabbit hole. We may not want to go down this route at all, but I just want to explore it because it really means you guys can just keep moving as fast as you want natively in your Telos development as you already are, and we wouldn't slow that down much. But with that, you would need, that's why I was asking about bridging. You would need an idea that we could, for example, take a gazillion FIO tokens, lock them up, and we're already building multi-sig bridges for Ethereum and Polygon, but we could eventually maybe do one for Telos. And the idea that you could interact with FIO, get paid in FIO on the Telos chain, potentially, right? And we already know that the key pairs that we have on FIO, and I've done this already, for example, with the Eden on OS. If you're part of the Eden community, you already have a FIO crypto handle. I haven't done it in a month or two, so I need to catch up, but I take your public key on EOS and I automatically create a FIO account for you, and I register an @Eden address, because that's like Sybil attack resistant, human verified person. All right, so it sounds like Rieke's down with this idea. And the downside is obviously it's complexity for our users. They have to learn about, Telos or whatever, but your onboarding experience, I think, is really nice in a way that you could potentially onboard to Telos first. We take that key and we generate your FIO handle on the other end with that. And now we connect the ecosystems that way. So there's a lot of different ways this could happen.
Well, and then simultaneously in the ecosystems we're building in, we can give any DAO a one button click. Because if we did it that route, then any DAO that gets launched has a one button to click to generate their FIO account and then accept tokens from other chains. And I think that looks like the easiest initial integration point. Because I'm just looking at how do we get a quick win, and not start like a year-long development process, which going through this is that might be the long term, which maybe we could still explore that. Let's still do that.
I feel like it's almost
that we can break it down, and a quicker win is we can integrate so that every DAO launching can then set up their FIO, address to start accepting other funds and sending funds to other chains.
Yeah, I want to explore that part, the sending to other chains and accepting other chains in a second, but let's table that, but don't let me forget. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to make HyphaDAO multi-chain anyway. So if we deploy on FIO, that's basically another chain that we deploy on.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
It shouldn't be a big deal, really. And FIO is very close to Telos. So
let me think about this a little bit. So when people say multi-chain, it's one thing to say, hey, we're literally building the native functionality on multiple chains, and it's like a duplicate modified to work on that chain. Other people say we mean bridges, so we're just bridging our functionality over to some other thing. You're talking about native multi-chain, yeah?
Yeah, because the native data structures aren't that complicated. The native contract part is
it's just flat tables, like you were saying.
Yeah, it's a document graph. So the idea was, we can deploy this document graph on different chains, and the Web3 UI interfaces with the GraphQL cache of the document graph. So for the user interface, it doesn't matter which chain you're running on. It only interfaces with the cache layer, and the cache layer then we have to put some adapters on the cache layer to handle all these different chains.
Yeah.
But so that way, that was the idea to be multi-chain basically, and
cool.
then we could have
And so it sounds like that is the future you want to go to. And I fully agree that FIO would be a really great first chain to integrate with, because we are EOS.IO based. The lift would be fairly small comparative to some other completely different chain, like Ethereum or something. So let me revisit the other point. And this is a question I had the last time we were talking, Rieki. I was trying to think it through. To be multi-chain natively, to be able to accept and receive and send multiple tokens, you basically become a wallet framework. And I know we talked about this briefly, but I want to make sure I'm clear on what you guys are really signing up to do. Meaning, you're actually going to have an ability to, for example, sign an Ethereum transaction to send an ERC20 token within your interface. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, only if you're running on the Ethereum chain. Good morning, Rieki.
Yeah, it sounds like Rieke's got to head to another call.
Well, I've
got this recorded though, Rieki, so I'll send it to it in the chat.
And I'm hosting it, so I should probably leave right now. But I love you both. This is fantastic. I'll watch the remainder of this, and anyway, it'd just be cool to create together. So I think there's a lot of touch points, and I'm just really hopeful that we can find one that's small. If we can bite something off that looks like we can have something actionable in like a month or two, maybe even less, then that's probably something worth going for instead of the longer integration to start. In my opinion, but also love everything going on here, and I'll let you two get back to it because this is all really great. So
thanks, Rieki.
It was a pleasure listening to you guys. Cheers, go.
Awesome. Yeah, and so
Thanks.
I want to clarify when we talk about what does it mean to be multi-chain as it relates to sending and receiving other tokens. Are you guys going to basically
Right.
be a wallet that supports multiple tokens?
No, not really. So we were going to have, you know, each DAO would have their own tokens. So they would create their own tokens and they could create it on that native chain that that DAO is running on. But we were not talking about creating a multi-chain wallet.
So and I want to make sure, and as unfortunately Rieki just dropped off, I want to make sure Rieki understands that, because the way he communicates it sometimes I think isn't that clear. Meaning, oh, you can just send and receive, you know, tokens on a bunch of other chains. It's like, how does that actually happen? Is some manual human doing that in some other wallet? You know what I mean?
Well, that's the vision. I mean, it's possible to make it work, right? But like short term, we're not gonna have that.
Yeah.
So short term, each DAO will run on some layer one that they want to be running on, and we'll use their DAO tokens that they create themselves. That's also created on that native chain. And then that's it. Actually, we are not even talking about native tokens. Like even we in HyphaDAO, you don't see Telos tokens anywhere. We don't deal with Telos tokens. We only deal with our own tokens. We deal with HUSD. We deal with payments that go out. Then you have to enter your Ethereum address, but that's more like a preference. You know, here's
okay.
my
So
Ethereum.
like in that example, then you have a treasurer who manages that, and they just pay out of their own wallet. So like what we do with FIO is we have a Gnosis multi-sig for our ETH assets, for example.
Same.
I get approval from the board, which is a 5 of 9 multi-sig, to transfer those funds every month or so into a wallet that I control as a managing director. And then I go ahead and I saw in the video, you know, there was discussion about how you could do governance for a treasury, which makes a lot of sense to me, you know, using these badges of sorts. And so then just, like I said, I approve the FIO requests that come through and pay people that way.
Yeah, ours is
cool.
Ours is a bit different. We have let's say it's our EOS multi-sig, right? It's an actual multi-sig, it's on chain. And then I create the payouts as, you know, an ESR, like a QR code. And I create a multi-sig request for the payout. So each payout is like a batch of like 20 or 30 payments. And then all the multi-sig holders go to that multi-sig and you know, approve. So and then if everyone approves, yeah, bam, it gets paid out.
Excellent.
So
I really like that idea of paying in your native token, and you know, you have no fees and all that kind of stuff. And then, so once someone gets the, you know, the stable coin in your native DAO token, what's the process of converting that stable coin to something else?
Yeah, so the stable coin that we have, it's not a stable coin, it's more like an IOU kind of token. Like we owe you $3,000.
Yeah.
And then you can go and say, I make a redemption request for my $3,000. And we say, okay, we're going to send you EOS. Here's your EOS. Give us your EOS address. Okay, you enter your EOS address in the preferences and your memo. And then every 2 weeks, everybody gets paid out. And then you mark these payments as complete and we're done with them. So it's all on chain, you know.
Do those conversions happen as a multi-sig as well? Or like if I'm saying, hey, I want to get $1,000 in EOS, I've got 1,000 IOU, or does that happen automatically in a contract?
So conversion.
Yeah, like from my stable coin to whatever I want to ultimately get, which I can convert to US dollars.
Yeah. How does this? I mean, basically, we just create this multi-sig request in the backend. We just have a multi-sig wallet, and I'm creating these requests so that they're mostly automated. I don't have to, you know, manually do a lot of stuff. I just sign off on it with ESR, ESO signing request QR codes.
Cool.
And and then the other ones, you know, just sign a multi-sig. So
cool.
We were thinking about a hot wallet too. You know, it'd be easier to just have a hot wallet to just pay it out automatically, but there would have to be a backend component that does the payouts and that's, you know, hack proof and things like that.
So one thing that I'm thinking just immediately would probably be the best way to kind of make this palatable to the FIO community right off the bat is just consider you guys another wallet. And say, hey, let's do FIO send integration, which is like a day's worth of work. Wherever you're dealing with public keys, you just allow them to say Luke at Stokes instead and do a query of the API from the block producers. Very, very simple. That'd be a quick integration. We
That'd be
generally
great.
do the bounties for that based on the number of the size of the community, which yours is not that big. So it's going to be kind of a little bit of a stretch to be like, hey, this is really something important. But with that done, and then the next phase would be kind of the FIO registration side, meaning every DAO could get their own domain on FIO, and then every member could get their own FIO crypto handle. So there's a little more complication because now you're actually signing messages, talking to the FIO chain. You're taking that, information, and you need FIO tokens to be able to register domains and addresses and things of that nature. That'd be a little bit more deeper integration. And again, I'll send you notes on all this documentation. And that would allow the HyphaDAO, as it is now, even on Telos, to be able to have a deeper interaction with FIO. So it's like DAOs that are created get domains, members that join get FIO crypto handles. And that way, it doesn't matter if they're doing stuff in Ethereum or EOS or Telos or whatever. They've got this nice crypto handle that is just kind of their, branded for their DAO. So they know who they are. They know that they're a member.
That's pretty good, yeah.
That would be kind of the initial integration that I think. And then with that, one thing that I could then explore would be me like creating a DAO on Hypha for FIO and playing around with it, and maybe get the board members to play around with it. And we start, exploring, because we've got a nice process with Confluence and Jira right now. Like people are pretty familiar with it. But if we start exploring some of the internal team members doing the same process, but over on this other tool set, and if we start to like it and go, man, this is super cool, we see this as a huge opportunity in the marketplace going forward, that a lot of people are going to want to do this. We'd love for them to do on the FIO chain to generate fees. That might be the tipping point where we could say, let's make FIO the first, or at that point, whether or not it's the first, but let's make FIO one of the multi-chain solutions for Hypha. And we start thinking about moving everything over. And then at that point, potentially have branded interfaces and things like that. Does that sound like a roadmap plan that makes sense?
Yeah, it's good. And I think, on our roadmap, we have, a couple of years, 1 million users, kind of more or less, because if we sign up, I don't know, 1,000 organizations in 1 year, that's probably more than 10,000 users, because it's like 10x. And then we have 10,000 organizations, 100,000 users. So hopefully, we can scale like that.
I'm laughing because I'm remembering 2018 with EOS DAC and these lofty goals, like the whole world is going to come beating down our door to register their DACs and DAOs. And again, like I said, I was too early with Bitcoin in 2013, and I think we're a little early with DACs and DAOs, but it's coming quickly. It's right around the corner.
We're getting a lot of interest. And so what you're saying is kind of true, because I think a lot of the people who are interested, so I make a presentation here in Bali, 3 people want to sign up immediately and make their own DAO. They're like, we've been waiting for this, we want to do it. But they don't really know what it takes to run a DAO, I think. So there's a lot of enthusiasm, but there's also a question of how to even make this, accessible to humans. So if you guys are up for it, it would be awesome to have you guys as alpha testers, because you already have experience with DAOs.
Absolutely.
Give us some amazing feedback. What's missing?
I could definitely.
DAO works well for us, but
yeah.
I'm sure there's other people that have other demands that we don't know about.
I definitely. Oh, come in, girl. So my little 8-year-old Monet apparently just finished her Luke Stokes drawing. Oh my gosh! All right. So what does it say? Oh, you put in the unf your NFTs. Very nice. So this is Monet.
With NFTs too. Great.
So you see this is Luke Stokes, apparently. And we have a slogan in FIO protocol that is unf with the U replace CK your NFTs to do NFT signatures. Do I really have hairy arms like that? Look at these arms. Look at the hair on those arms.
Clearly, you have very hairy arms.
Oh, Monet, I love it. I think that's super cool.
The hair was too hard to draw.
The hair was too, so you just skipped the whole head. So I am headless. But those eyes are amazing. Well done, girl. Super
good
cool.
stuff.
Thanks
good stuff.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. Very cool.
But the white out just went.
Yeah, I saw this little drop of white out there.
But that's fine.
All right, I'm almost done with my call, and then we'll talk more. That's super cool. Thanks for showing me. Awesome.
Very cool.
I love it. So I'm kind of outlining what a roadmap. So it'd be like, one would be a FIO send integration into existing HyphaDAO tools on Telos. 2 would be deepen the integration to include domain, crypto handle, domain and crypto handle registrations, public address mappings, because they're not very good unless you can map it. It's another functionality. I have to say, Luke Stokes at HyphaDAO is now going to map to, an ETH address or something like that. So public address or public key mapping.
That's great.
And then we go further to say FIO request support as well. So you can create FIO requests, reject them, approve them, that kind of thing. And then I think third from there would be the FIO organization at that point can now beta test running things on Hypha, running basically the FIO DAC on Hypha. And then I would say phase 4 would be a still undetermined potential phase, but would be the idea of, if there's a market fit, porting all HyphaDAO functionality to the native FIO chain, with the idea being this will create more FIO fees and allow for seamless interactions with existing FIO accounts. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's
all right.
pretty
So
good.
I'm going to throw this in the chat. And that's what I'm saying right there. That's my initial thought on what a roadmap might look like for partnering together, working together. And then what we haven't even discussed would be, I think phase 1 and 2 would be pretty straightforward as far as like, hey, just do a write-up, do a proposal. Here's what we'd like to do. We'd like to get paid this much. And, we're going to manage it as much as possible from ourselves. Hopefully not going to need a lot of work from our team. And then we just have to like sell it a bit to the community to be like, hey, look, this isn't like Bitcoin.com wallet, which we just launched with. This isn't Opera wallet, which has, millions and millions of users. Like, so clearly we're going to have to make a smaller grant bounties because of that. But this is an exploration that has longer term value for the organization and the community than just another wallet. It's actually, we're exploring DAO tools. So it's not just a bounty. It's actually part of the future development of the running FIO as a DAO exploration. So I think from that argument, I can make a play to say, I think we need to think in terms of the size of the grant with that context in perspective. It's not just a FIO grant, but these are just roadmaps, phases of roadmaps. So maybe the 1 and 2 aren't that big, but maybe 3 and 4 might have a larger bounty size to it.
Right. So, I mean, in terms of, volume wallet, it would be the Seeds wallet that has more volume, but it's also just launching. So it's not really, it has 10,000 users now, but, it's not big yet, but that has the potential to really grow really, really fast once it's, once it's operational. We have a lot of, communities that want to join and all these kind of things. So once that package is actually working, and that, I mean, for Seeds wallet, it's very useful. The Seeds users probably don't need to send, cash to Ethereum or something. Would be interesting in the future too, though. But they, to make it really usable and to have like good usernames, because I feel like, the Telos usernames are kind of almost good.
Yeah, I feel the same way about EOS. It's like
almost good.
Yeah. So I like that you can just have have exactly the username you want. Usually, the handle that you use in every other platform, and that way you're known in that DAO. I think that makes a lot of sense. It's really important. And then with that too, you just got me thinking that if and Rieki will correct me if he sees a recording later, if he really does want to create like a multi-chain wallet functionality, meaning I could actually send and receive tokens from other native chains, we might explore connecting you with Paul at Edge Wallet. He's on the board for FIO Protocol, and they've got an API, a wallet as an API service. And that's what we're using for our FIO dashboard that we just launched. That's something we actually just launched it this week. You might want to look into that as well, so that there may be a path where relatively easy, because it's just interacting with an API in a full non-custodial way, you might even be able to support in your wallet more than just the native token potentially. Something to consider.
I mean, for Seeds, it needs to be as simple as possible. So I don't think you can do anything else but Seeds. It's complicated enough with the 3 layers that we're going to have and things like that. Yeah. And we need to make that so easy. I mean,
Totally agree. Totally
I have
agree.
a lot of people who don't even understand anything about crypto. They will just be like, I don't
And,
know.
and,
I just
and that's
want to do it.
actually, that's another reason why I'm very excited about what you're doing, because you're focusing on the target market that I'm always preaching that is the most important. Mathematically, there's only about 4% of the world in crypto today. And people
100%.
not in crypto are where the growth opportunity is for crypto. And we have to stop being, engineers building tools for other engineers. We got to build it for everyday people.
I mean, now because of all these world events and stuff like that, I have a lot of friends who want to get into crypto, and they're just completely confused. They're like, what is going? I don't know how to do that. They really want to do it, but they're like, I can't figure this out. It's too hard. It's just too hard.
Awesome. All right, we've already been going for like an hour and 15 minutes, way over your time. Sorry to keep you so long, but this has been super exciting and fun. I'm actually going to take this video. I think this is a great video. I don't think there's anything secret or private we discussed here.
Oh,
if you're cool with that, I would like to publish this video and use it as a way to talk about the excitement of what you've built with HyphaDAO. I think it's an amazing technology stack. I'm really excited. I know some of it in the video is still under development, so I don't want to oversell it, but I will link out to the video as well that Rieki did. And just, this would be a way to just keep the conversation going with our community as well, to say, hey, look at the potential of what could be done here. Nick, so awesome to connect with you. Like not in person yet, but it's on video after being Facebook friends for so long. And again, I love that we're in alignment with wanting to partner with, as we say, consciously aware people.
This is very aligned. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I really want to integrate FIO no matter what. So yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right. Well, let's keep the conversation going. We've got that shared Telegram and we can keep those going. I'll put this out there so the rest of the team can check it out if they want to. I like the pace that we're going, where just maybe I can kind of represent FIO for now. I can dive into technical questions like the CDT thing and things like that. And then when it's nice and structured and I think well organized, I think then we bring it to the steering committee and be like, hey, we've thought this through. We've worked on this. We haven't bothered you with a bunch of meetings, but here it's a nice package ready to go.
Makes sense.
Do it,
it gets more stuff actually done. Yeah.
And just selfishly, I want to work on like conscious aware projects within the FIO ecosystem. That's what I'm most excited about. A lot of meetings, sometimes I'm like, but this meeting I was excited about. So
Okay.
have a fantastic day. All right, take care.